Hello, and thank you once again for making Africa's your preferred podcast. My name is Daniel Itai, and today I'm in conversation with Dr. Jackson Kinyanjui from Climate Change Kenya and Mr. Musa Tanko from Climate Educate Project in Nigeria. So today we are going to be reflecting on the issue of climate change in Africa. In recent weeks now, there has been a lot of the effects of climate change are being felt in some parts of the world, like in the United States, Canada, Germany, India, China, amongst others, where there have been cases of flooding and felt fires that have caused intensive damage, to property and even loss of life. So the ravaging effects of climate change are real, and we have to take a stand, like here in Africa, to ensure that something like that doesn't happen also here in Africa. We have to try to combat it by all means. So we are just going to hear from Dr. Kinyanjui and Mr. Tanko what they have to say, how we can be able to combat the ravaging effects of climate change in Africa. Like now in Nigeria, they're already going through that phase of the effects of climate change. There's a lot of flooding now that is happening in Lagos with the water reaching knee deep, and also there's now an outbreak of cholera. So yeah, it's real, the issue of climate change is real. So we have to brace ourselves and try to combat the effects of climate change in Africa before it's too late. So yeah, let's just hear from Dr. Kinyanjui and Mr. Tanko what they have to say.
In regard to the first question, whether Africa will suffer the same problem that you're seeing in USA, China, Italy, and Germany in terms of floods and droughts, there is a huge possibility of this happening. Remember, climate change is not only constrained to a country, because as much as we are talking about the problems, the causes of climate change are usually regional, but the effects are usually global. So yes, Africa is set to experience the same problems, but the difference between Africa and the other developed nations is that Africa is the least adapted and doesn't have the resources to actually be able to cushion itself from the effects of climate change. But for USA, China, Italy, and Germany, and the rest of the developed countries, they have the mechanisms and they have the technology to actually recover from such catastrophic events. But Africa lacks the adaptive capacity to actually be able to recover from such an event if it were to occur. To the second question, that is, to what extent can Africa continent combat the effects of climate change? There is a lot that Africa can do, and this pertains to one. We can actually contribute to tree planting. You can actually cut our emissions, and we can also contribute to the Paris Agreement, where every country was supposed to add its voice to what we call the nationally determined contributions. So as long as each country does not go the way of using fossil fuel and embrace the use of green energy, then there's a lot we can do. Also, we can also embrace the use of what we call nuclear energy and maybe renewable energy, solar, wind, water, and geothermal, as opposed to the fossil fuel kind of energy sources. So these are some of the few things that Africa can actually do.
I agree with you, Dr. Kinyanjui. I think it's high time that we make full use of these non-renewable sources of energy, such as solar, gas, and wind, and especially considering the fact that we have them in abundance. We have to make use of them to preserve our continent from the ripple effects of climate change. But coming to you, Mr. Tanko, what are your thoughts about the issue of climate change here in Africa? Are we going to see also these ravaging effects that we're seeing in other parts of the world reaching us here in Africa? And how best can we combat these effects?
Okay, yeah. it is possible, to see it in Africa also. That is what is happening in the global north. Just recently we saw the devastating effects of tropical cyclone Idai in Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Malawi. Also most of the coastal cities will experience an alarming rise in sea level, thereby displacing many communities in the process. While the inland communities along the river banks will be flooded continuously. And also drought and acute dryness will persist in the Sahel. Huge projects like the Great Green Wall will have a positive impact against desert encroachment in the Sahel. Great Green Wall is an 8,000 kilometer forest, cutting across Burkina Faso, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Mali, Mauritania, Nigeria, Senegal, Sudan, and Chad. This project is intended, to serve as a kind of, barrier against, the encroachment of the Sahara Desert into most part of the Sahel. So I think, the most important project for climate change mitigation, particularly in Africa, should be, channeled toward, reforestation. More trees, should be, planted, because that will go a long way, in decreasing the acute dryness, in most of the places.
Yes, more trees are really they need to be planted. We need to plant more trees. We need more vegetation, to help, in mitigating these ravaging effects. But do you think that we have done enough as a continent to mitigate these ravaging effects? Is the continent taking enough measures, to implement the effects of climate change?
Yeah, looking at our circumstances as, third world countries, I can say we are doing well, on issues related to climate change. African countries are always in the forefront, ratifying all international treaties and agreements on environment. Looking at the implementation angle, I think the big economies in sub-Saharan Africa are also doing well. That's looking at, the nationally determined contributions of, for example, countries like Nigeria, like South Africa, like even countries like Egypt, they are doing well when you go through, the implementation. Yes. So I think we are really doing well, in my own opinion.
I'm glad to know that you're stating that the continent has done something, to mitigate the ravaging effects of climate change, because it shows that they are aware, they know that something needs to be done, to prevent something disastrous from happening. But coming back to you, Dr. Kinyanjui, what are the imminent measures that should be taken to mitigate the effects of climate change? And do you think that as a continent we have done enough, or are we doing something along those lines to mitigate the ravaging effects of the climate change?
As I said, African continent has done a lot, but due to the financial constraints, all I can say is that we are not ready in terms of any natural disaster that may come our way. As As of now, we are actually now using nature-based solutions which are cheaper and available to us. That is in terms of planting trees and maybe the cutting down of emissions. But if we had the resources and the money, then we could use more drastic kind of measures that would actually fasten the process of adapting or mitigating the effects of climate change. Remember that Africa has a population of more than 1.2 billion, and this one calls for urgent mitigation measures because they are saying that the largest percentage of refugees in Africa and globally is from the climate change effects. So yes, we need to step up and we need to work with donors to see how best we can be able to protect our continent from such catastrophes. These measures, we can either categorize them into either short-term, medium-term, or long-term. But as for now, scientists have realized that greenhouse gases are the huge contributors to climate change. So as long as we cut down our greenhouse gases emissions, that is in terms of methane, carbon dioxide, and all this, then we are safe. So here we are calling for the use of electric vehicles, the use of walkways, the use of renewable energy as opposed to fossil fuels, the planting of more trees because trees are known to be carbon sequesters, and also the protection of our water and land masses, which are also other sources of carbon sequesters.
Okay. And how best can people, be informed about the ravaging effects of climate change?
One of the ways in which people can be informed is the use of social media. As I have done through my page, I usually give informed informations on Facebook, on Twitter, and on my website pages and on YouTube pages, where people actually go there and learn more about climate change. Also, on the same, the governments can actually roll out a program where they have climate change as one of the learning subjects in schools, so that students can learn about climate change at a tender age. So this one we are saying is that people can be informed in so many platforms, be it social medias, be it door-to-door, and all these are ways. But one of the ways also we have seen is through the inception of subjects relating to climate change in schools. And that is why most of the African countries are now developing the climate change learning strategy, which now has steps and procedures into how these climate change can be incorporated into the learning institutions.
Yes. I think the social media now is proving to be a real asset, when it comes to the dissemination of information, and we just have to make use of it to let people know about the ravaging effects of climate change. But lastly, Mr. Tanko, in your view, how best can we inform people or educate people about the ravaging effects of climate change?
In my own opinion, I think mass education is very, very important. Trying to get people informed, about the causes, about the effects. To my own opinion, I think the level at which our attention must be focused should be with our younger generations. Education, and proper enlightenment should be done at that level. At their tender age, let them understand the environment, how valuable the resources it is to our existence, as human. So that is what very, very important.
Well, that's a wrap of today's segment of AfriCast. Remember, if you want more segments like this, you can simply send us an email at africast54@gmail.com. That's AFRICAST54@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can use our WhatsApp number. Just send subscribe to +276712555463. Or if you have any other queries, please feel free to use our WhatsApp number and our email address to air up your grievances. Thank you so much.
This podcast was brought to you by DW24 News, Unlimited Worldwide News.